So, Donald Trump's recent visit to Detroit, well, it wasn't just another campaign stop, not even close. It was this wild mix of a really personal confrontation, some huge policy announcements, and some pretty serious hints of a looming international crisis. We're going to unpack all of it, from a viral video right to the brink of war, all based on the reporting from that day. Wow, okay, so this phrase right here, this is what kicked the whole thing off. It was shouted from a crowd and it created this incredibly tense moment that just immediately went viral and really it set the tone for the entire day. So, what's the backstory here? As Trump was leaving a speech he gave to auto workers, this whole interaction was caught on camera. And let me tell you, reports from the day are calling it a major flashpoint of the entire visit.
All right, so here's how we're going to break down this crazy day. We'll go through it in 4 parts. First, we'll start with that viral confrontation. Then, we'll get into a pretty major policy proposal on citizenship. After that, a new directive on sanctuary cities. And finally, we're going to look at the escalating situation with Iran.
Okay, first up, let's take a closer look at that personal incident, the one that got so much attention online. The whole thing happened incredibly fast. A worker shouts the insult, right? Then Trump was filmed making a gesture that, well, a lot of people interpreted it as him flipping the bird. A video from TMZ got a hold of it, and it just spread like wildfire. It's one of those moments that had people on all sides debating, presidential conduct. But you know that viral moment? It was really just the prelude. The speech itself contained some really serious policy proposals. The language he used was just incredibly direct. I mean, he specifically targeted Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and the broader Somali community, and he connected them to this new push for something called denaturalization.
To imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country. Think of that Ilhan Omar. She lives in Somalia. They don't have a government. They don't have a military. They don't have police. They don't have anything. All they have is murder and robbing ships, bringing in ships, pirates. That's stopped. Same missile, ping. That's the end of them. It's amazing how that can stop corruption. Those missiles, they never miss, The same one, exactly the same one. But think of it, she comes from a country with nothing, and she comes here and she tells us about our Constitution. I have a constitutional right to rip off the country. I guess she's a total scam artist. Anybody knows it. How do you let her get away with it? AOC plus 3. She was one of the 3. They're all scammers. They're so bad for our country. They're so bad for our country.
Now, in this speech, he's
So, what exactly is denaturalization? It's important to be clear here. We're not talking about green cards or asylum. This is the act of stripping a naturalized person of their American citizenship. It is an incredibly serious, incredibly powerful tool. And here's the thing, there's a reason it's so rare. The legal bar is exceptionally high. You can't just lose your citizenship for committing a crime later on. Prosecutors have to prove that you committed fraud during your initial citizenship process. That's a much, much higher standard than a lot of people realize. But the speech didn't stop there. The next major announcement was about a new federal policy, and this one targeted what are often called sanctuary cities. So that was the reasoning he gave. The plan is to withhold federal funding from cities and states that have these sanctuary policies, which basically means they limit how much they cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. The source also notes that since many of these are Democratic-run cities, it definitely adds a political layer to the whole thing. And here's the really crucial part. The timeline. This isn't some proposal for way down the road. The policy is set to begin on February 1st. That means the impact on these communities could be felt almost immediately. And as if all those domestic policy bombshells weren't enough, the focus then pivoted hard. It shifted to a really urgent foreign policy crisis. The conversation turned to Iran, where tensions are just reaching a boiling point. To really get the gravity of this, you have to understand what's happening on the ground in Iran right now. The country is seeing historic, massive protests. And in response, the regime has reportedly cut off internet and power to try and suppress information. But even with that, these horrible stories of a brutal crackdown are starting to emerge. According to a CBS News report that was cited in the source material, this is the number of people reportedly killed by the Iranian regime during these protests. Just Let that sink in. 12,000. It's a staggering figure that really underscores the scale of the violence. And in the middle of all this was the president's message. It was clear, and it was pretty ominous. A direct warning to Americans and our allies to get out of the country, followed by this promise that help is coming. You know that phrase, it strongly suggests some kind of intervention is on the horizon.
So, what does help actually mean? Well, the source highlights this key debate happening within the administration. On one side, you had figures like J.D. Vance, who were reportedly pushing for a diplomatic path. But on the other side, the president's own language seemed to be pointing squarely toward military action.
And based on their reporting and their contacts, the source came to a pretty stark conclusion. The debate is over. The decision to strike Iran has reportedly already been made, and the only question left is the timing. It's a matter of when, not if. And that leaves us right here. You've got a nation on edge, an entire region in turmoil, and a world watching very, very closely. The events of the next few days could literally reshape global politics. The question for all of us now is, what happens next?